Thank you for joining us here at NASA's Kennedy Space Center for the post-landing news conference for Space Shuttle Discovery's STS-119 mission. We have three NASA managers here to recap Discovery's flight to the International Space Station. To my left is the Associate Administrator for Space Operations, Bill Gerstenmaier.
Afternoon.
Next we have the Deputy Manager for the Space Shuttle Program, Leroy Kane.
Good afternoon.
And finally, Shuttle Launch Director, Mike Leinbach.
Good afternoon.
We'll start with opening remarks, and then we'll open it up to questions. Mr. Gerstenmaier?
Thanks, Howard. This is really an amazing time and an amazing mission. If you think about today, we had a Soyuz docking this morning, followed by a shuttle landing, and that's just amazing. Also, we had 13 crew on orbit not too long ago, and that's also a pretty amazing feat when you think about it. Also, if you take a look at the space station fly-around pictures and you look at the space station, that's probably the most amazing image that you can ever imagine. If you think about the accomplishment, the technical hardware from around the world is all operating together. There's a Japanese laboratory, a U.S. laboratory, a Russian laboratory, and a European laboratory, all functioning, operating, working together. Each country used their own design standards to build the hardware. We integrated it essentially on orbit in some cases, and it all is working together and functioning just super. So it's just amazing. And I think that really, if you look at that station, really not one country could accomplish what's going on with Space Station. It really took all the countries to work together and to pull this off. And if you think about it in terms of even the political side, we worked across multiple administrations in the U.S., multiple presidents throughout the European countries, multiple presidents in Russia, but through all that hard work came together. So when you look at the space station, it looks like the pins we carry on our lapels. It's a pretty amazing feat. I also can't say enough about the people that work on the shuttle and station programs. They're extremely unselfish in what they do. The shuttle team and the ground ops folks down here work so tirelessly to make all this happen. It's phenomenal. I didn't think we'd get this flight off in front of the Soyuz launch, but the teams down here just pulled together and worked and got all the problems worked for us, the flow control valve, the GUP hydrogen power problems, all those things got done. The teams in Houston put together a very good mission with all the EVAs. I'm extremely happy with the amount of EVA work that got done and the station and the way the shape that the space station is left in. And I think as we look forward a little bit to the future, we got to start thinking now about how we're going to really utilize Space Station. Space Station can really provide a basic research environment that's really unique. And we see that with the salmonella vaccine that we're working on that potentially can help folks here on the ground. We see some things also in bone loss that are potential. We flew some different bacteria on this flight, actually 4 different strains of bacteria. We're going to try to use those things to, again, help us control disease here on the ground. So Space Station is really a unique research environment, that unique aspect of space. We can really use Space Station for that. Also, if you look at our international relationships, Space Station is huge in doing that. And then Space Station is also really inspiring students in the next generation. This flight, when President Obama called to the space station with all the students around, the questions from the students were really amazing. I was in Russia a couple days ago, and the Russian kids designed the crew patch that the Expedition 19 crew is wearing. And Anna, the little girl that one of the designers of the patch, talked to the crew across the glass. And her questions were amazing to the crew. They were the most insightful, interesting questions I've heard. So here's a young Russian girl from Moscow, maybe 12 years old, asking really good questions. And then I think about here when the My Weekly Reader editor came here and attended a launch, and she asked a question. She sat out in the very audience where you sit. And she asked the Japanese administrator what research the Japanese were going to do on Space Station. And I think of all the questions that were asked by the reporters that day, I think her questions were probably the most insightful. So Space Station can give us a unique chance to inspire kids and see them at their best and make them really do great things. And then lastly, I think Station can also help us with a commercial market. We're starting to establish the SpaceX operations over here down at KSC. And that should help us with getting a new way to get cargo to and from Space Station. The tourism, which we see as evidenced by Charles Simonyi flying again to the Space Station, is also a potential for the commercial side. So I think the government can step back a little bit, and Space Station can do that. So Space Station can do multiple things for us, and we need to figure out how we can effectively utilize Space Station. So I challenge all of us to look to ways to utilize Station, because now's the time to start doing that planning. So again, I would just ask us all to stop for a moment and reflect on what's happening in space. I don't think there's ever been a time period that is this special and this amazing. And we get caught up in the moment of the day, we get caught up in our own individual items, but we don't look at the whole. And we need to stop back and think about all the things that are going on and how can we really take unique advantage of what we have here. This is a very special time in spaceflight, and we need to make sure we get the absolute most out of it. So look carefully at the images. Look at the hardware. We've got 2 orbiters in preparation for the next set of flights. We've got the Ares 1X getting ready to go. We've got the Soyuz that just docked and getting ready to land. We've got a Japanese cargo vehicle that's undergoing engine firings in Japan. We've got the preparations underway for the Hubble Space Telescope servicing, with the command data processing unit being shipped here tomorrow. We've talked to the teams. We've decided to use 2 pads for the HST flight, and we'll do that. So these are amazing times. This was an amazing mission. Think about it, and I look forward to your questions. Leroy?
Okay. Well, thanks, Bill. It is really, really good to be with you here this afternoon. The team yesterday, as we sat in our mission management team and we talked a little bit about how successful the dock mission had been, and of course the one main objective of our mission we had remaining was a safe, successful deorbit entry and landing for Discovery, and you saw that today. It was a beautiful landing, and I think about the only thing that beats a beautiful orbiter landing like this is the next launch. So we look forward to that as well. But overall, of course, the mission went extremely well. The teams on the ground did an outstanding job on the shuttle and the station side working together. These missions are extremely complicated. They're very complex missions to pull off. We've talked to you all about that in great detail before. I think we've left the station in a configuration that we're all very proud of. I think everybody in the programs can be very proud of. I think every individual can be proud of for their own part in that feat. We have a lot of work ahead of us, of course, with the remaining missions that we have to fly. This was, I think, the 36th mission for Discovery, and she's certainly flown her share. We've flown 28 missions to the space station now, and I think 125 space shuttle missions all in total. And so it's a great flying machine. It's an amazing team that makes these missions happen. And part of the reason why we can be as successful as we were on a mission like this, such as an extremely complex mission to the space station, an assembly mission like we just flew, is when the hardware performs the way it does, and when the teams on the ground are able to work together and to integrate and resolve problems. The Discovery just performed in just an amazing, flawless manner. That's a great tribute to the teams here on the ground in the launch vehicle processing, Mike's teams, who put these vehicles together with great care. Every single individual can be very proud of what we accomplished here in the completion of this outstanding mission today. So we couldn't be happier in terms of how this mission turned out for us. And I'm just very proud to be part of a team like this. There isn't anything that this team can't accomplish. And it's great to be here with you today. Happy to take your questions. Mike.
Okay. Thanks, Leroy. Well, the vehicle looks really good. I'd like to congratulate Team Discovery, as Leroy just did, that the orbiter worked so well on orbit. Every crew member that I talked to today commented on how well Discovery performed, and the vehicle essentially stayed out of their way so they could perform their mission. And it's just a tribute to the team here on the ground and the flight control team taking care of the vehicle from the ground. So the vehicle performed great. It looks good on the runway. Very few dings to the tiles. It looked really, really good. It was a dead center touchdown and rollout. I talked to Brew Archambault, the commander, and he was just tickled pink about how the vehicle handled during landing. And now it starts the turnaround. We're going to have a 101-day flow of Discovery in the OPF. That'll start tonight. Meanwhile, in the other OPF bays, 104 is in the VAB action, excuse me. We're going to roll 104 out to Pad A on Tuesday morning, get ready for her launch to the Hubble Space Telescope May the 12th. And Endeavour is in the bay. We'll roll out and be mated to the external tank on April the 10th. And so we have 2 missions right on the heels of this one. Feels good to have this one down, and the team is getting ready to start the turnaround So Stephanie Stilson and Wayne Bingham, the two leaders of the flow processing team here at KSC, are putting the plans together to turn around for its next mission, and I'm sure they'll do a great job. So it's good to have Discovery home. She looks great, and the crew is ecstatic about how it performed on orbit, and ready to get on to the next one. Thanks.
All right, thanks, Mike. We'll take questions now from media here, and we have apparently a couple of reporters at NASA's Johnson Space Center in Houston, so we'll get to them in a couple minutes. When I call on you, please wait for the microphone and then state your name, news affiliation, and who you would like to answer your question. We'll start with Marcia.
Marcia Dunn, Associated Press, maybe for Mike. How did the thermal tiles look downstream of the DTO test? Any indication of whether they took some extra heat or wear and tear?
Well, let's see, they looked really good. I think we have some images, do we?
Yeah, we had.
Do we have them loaded?
I don't know if we have them in hand yet, but we did get notification that the cast glance vehicle that was going to take some imagery for us from an orbiting position was successful in that endeavor. And so we look forward to getting that data. That will be a very important part of the overall test data that we get. Our aerothermal folks on the design team back in Houston will be very interested in getting that data. So all indications are that we were able to capture some good data. And of course the vehicle data, we have some thermocouples downstream of the boundary layer transition tab. And so we look forward to getting that data back. It's the only vehicle that flies like this in a hypersonic regime where we're able to capture this kind of aerodynamic data. So we're really excited to get this test data. And all indications externally on the vehicle certainly look like performance was really good. So
Nothing evident on the belly of the shuttle
No.
that you see. And did any of you talk to Sandra Magnus? How's she doing?
We didn't talk directly with her, but I asked the crew that was with her, and she's doing just great. Everything is fine. She's in great shape, good spirits. She had some medical protocol stuff that they wanted to do, and they didn't want her to do a lot of movement, so she was kind of just doing that. But she's in great shape, and she's glad to be back.
Okay, Todd.
Todd Halverson of Florida Today. I guess for Gerst, you mentioned that you made a decision to go to dual pad operations for the STS-125 and 400 LON mission. Could you talk about what prompted you to go in that direction and where the Ares 1X will fall out on the schedule now?
Yeah, we'll give you some more details after rollout of Discovery, of Atlantis on Tuesday. But the basic decision was we're able to get a lot of work done at the pad. You can see the lightning towers are up; those are done. We took the lightning mast off the top. We were able to put the fifth segment to access device on the rotating service structure. We put some bracketry in that holds some of the wind loading stuff. So we were able to get a lot of the work done on the pad that still allows us to launch an orbiter off of that. So the impact to Ares 1-X will be probably 3-4 weeks, maybe. We'll talk to you a little bit about that when we look at an overall integrated schedule. But we think it's more of our normal plan to have the orbiter out at the pad. It gives us a little more robustness from a crew standpoint. And with Ares sitting kind of at the end of Ares 1X sitting at the end of July, this isn't too big of an impact to them because we were basically able to get all the work done out on Pad B. So when you look at it from an overall agency standpoint, it seems like the right decision to keep things moving forward in the right path to do that. And we'll give you some more details on the specifics and the exact dates that occurred and the exact mods on Tuesday.
And for Mike Leinbach, could you say again when Endeavour will actually go out to Pad B?
Yeah, the mate to the external tank is the 10th of April, and then out to Pad B on the 17th.
Okay, from the back, Maggie.
Hi, Rory O'Neill with Westwood One Radio. The Senate committee this week and the Budget Committee had put forward that plan, I guess, by Senator Nelson about not being so date specific on retiring by 2010, but rather be more mission specific or flight specific and let the flights end when they may. I'm just wondering, Mr. Gerstenmaier, how you feel about that. Is the budget year on FY10 sort of still the drop dead date?
We'll kind of see what we get in the budget as it goes through the budget cycle. You know, this is kind of the first step, and the multiple folks have to approve the budget. So this is the first piece. Again, the way we've talked about it is we take each flight one at a time, and we'll just work through them in the right manner and see how things come out. So even though the schedule seems overall important, a lot of people make a big deal out of it. I mean, we're effectively treating it kind of the same way. We're going to do each mission, make sure that mission is really ready to go fly, and move on to the next mission at the right time. So we see how all that sorts out, but we're a long way from getting a clear reading on what all that means. But it's a first step that we see.
And you just said a second ago that figuring out how to effectively use the space station, is that sort of how you should do it? In terms, it seems like putting the cart before the horse. Build it and then figure out what to do with it. I mean, or is that the way you have to do it because of the changing nature of science and technology?
When I said that, I think about extended space station operations. Right now, we have a requirement to not preclude operations beyond 2015. So I think we have a very unique period here where we can look at flying the space station between 2015 and, say, 2020, 2025. So when I talk about utilizing station, that's what I'm thinking about, is that period that's much further out than where we are. The near-term stuff, we've got all that figured out. We've got the research racks going up. The science is there. All that's in place. We'll see those benefits come back. But the question to us now is there science beyond that we would like to use station for in the 2015 to 2020 timeframe? And now is the time to start planning for that science and planning for that research, or we'll miss the opportunity.
Okay, take another question here, and then we'll go to the Johnson Space Center.
Hi, Eben Brown, Fox News Radio, for anyone who wants to take this. The external cargo platform, that it was a bit of a headache for some people during the EVA, obviously not fully resolved. What's the plan to get that working? How long will it take, and will it impact anything that you have planned?
Yeah, it's not a big deal to us right now. It's a couple flights away. I think the first time we need it is ULF-3, which I think is next year, the first flight of next year in February. So we got some time to go resolve it. The way this device works is it locks into kind of a temporary position, and then it should come unlocked from that position. It appears that it's stuck in that position. So we'll see if we can understand what's going on. They're kind of temperamental sometimes. We may try some thermal conditioning next time. I'm sure the teams will resolve it. We'll be able to figure out what's going on and get it fixed. And we got plenty of time to get it down before we attach the external carrier to the outside. So it's not a big deal. If you look at the way we plan, we plan things well in advance of when they actually need to occur. And so then that gives us a chance, if it doesn't work right, we've got a couple shuttle flights to go fix it and get it worked. And we'll work it during the right time. We'll figure out if we want to add it to a shuttle EVA that's coming up, or we may add it to a stage EVA. Well, the teams will figure out the right time to put it in, but it'll be easily accommodated.
Okay, now we'll go to NASA's Johnson Space Center in Houston for questions there.
Gina Sinceri, ABC News, from Mike Leinbach. Mike, the decision was made after Columbia to treat the space shuttle fleet as experimental, not operational. How really has that had a practical difference for you processing these shuttles?
Well, Gina, I don't think it's affected the way we process the shuttles at all. We have turnaround requirements that we have to meet. We test each system after each flight, make sure it's ready to go for its next flight. And so attaching a word, experimental versus operational, to me that doesn't make any difference. We have our requirements to meet, and when they're all met, we'll go fly again. So I don't put a lot of stock in a word like that. It's really, these vehicles have to be ready to fly, and when they are, we go fly, and that's the approach we always take.
Robert Perlman with Space.com and Space News for Bill Gerstenmaier or Leroy Kane. Yesterday, we heard John Phillips talk from space about the importance of the alpha magnetic spectrometer and its flight to the ISS, and how the power that this crew delivered would be important to its flight. Can you give an update on its status as being manifested and STS-134 in general?
What we're doing is we're essentially planning to go fly that flight. The teams are working all the activities that need to be done. Again, we'll see in the budget whether we get funding to go fly that flight, but we're doing all the preparations necessary for that flight. Anything that needs to be done, we're getting it completed now on the schedule that needs to be done. So for all intents and purposes, we're ready to go fly the flight. And we hear very positive things from all our congressional friends. We'll make sure that once we get the actual budget approved this summer, then we'll be ready to go in 2010 with the flight and go ahead and prepare. So we're fully getting ready to go execute that flight.
And for Bill Gerstenmaier again, you spoke about the importance of, or the ability of the space station to attract youth interest, children's interest. And on that note, the Colbert Show has a very large youth interest. Can you say if Node 3 will be named the Colbert Node?
In my standard NASA answer, right, that it gets booed from the younger audience, we're still thinking about it. But we have a plan, and we're working with some folks, and in a couple of weeks, you'll know what the answer is.
Okay, that's all the questions we have at Johnson Space Center. We'll come back here for a couple of last-minute questions. Todd?
Todd Halverson of Florida Today. Regarding the FY 2010 budget proposal that was passed in the Senate Budget Committee this week, it would provide $2.5 billion for shuttle operations in 2011, and I guess I have two questions on that. I'm wondering, Mr. Gersemeyer, if you are at all concerned about schedule pressure. There's a limited amount of time if you look at the end of 2010 as a retirement date for the shuttle fleet, and of course, schedule pressure was cited as a contributing cause in both the Challenger and Columbia accidents. And I'm wondering, first of all, what your thoughts are on schedule pressure and whether flying in 2011 would help alleviate that problem.
Again, the way I look at it is I take each flight one at a time, and as Mike talked to you, you know, we treat these vehicles when they're ready to go fly, we go fly them, and if there's something that needs to be extra work, we'll go take the extra time to go do the work, and the schedule ends up where the schedule ends up, and if we end up bumping a flight or losing a flight, we'll figure out how to deal with that when the time comes. So we're not going to do anything dumb. We're not going to be pushing the teams. You know, we'll be aware of the schedule and where it sits, but at the right time we'll stop and not do anything. And I think you've seen that evidenced in what we do, and we're going to continue to operate that way. If we learn something, discover something new, and we stand down for a while, we will, and it'll be fine. So I don't care one way or the other. We're just going to take them one day, one flight at a time, and get prepared. And when we're ready to go fly, we go fly.
Marcia?
Marcia Dunn, Associated Press. For Bill, do you have any update on increased hazards for Atlantis because of the orbital debris situation?
Yeah, I think we've got some preliminary numbers. They're still going to be refined. I think they're like, what are they, Leroy?
We have the mean, the latest calculations that we've done. Again, we've got to go do some more work on these numbers, but the mean is 1 in 185. The 5th percentile is 1 in 140, and the 95th percentile is 1 in 253. And so again, when we do these statistical analyses, we try to do we're interested in where the mean is, but we're also interested in where the 5th and the 95th percentile are as well. So those are the best numbers we have today. We have some more work to go do on the statistical analysis, and we have some more discussions to have in terms of the mitigations that we already plan to put in place and some other things that we might could consider. So those are the numbers for today. I imagine they'll be slightly different by the time we get to FRR.
Yeah, and our general guidance is 1 in 200, so we're a little bit below from a mean standpoint, but being 1 in 185. But that's not significant. As Leroy said, we're going to look at some other mitigation stuff, and then we're also still gathering some data. We don't have all the data in yet from all the tracking of the debris out there, and we'll see what it does later. But again, if it stays at about the 1 in 185, that won't be a problem to us. We'll just have to be careful with it, and we'll be okay. So we'll continue to work it and refine it, but that's where we sit today with the data we've got.
It seems like debris has been a big deal in the last month or so with the space station. Is this just something you're going to have to swallow and deal with in increasing proportions in the years to come, or is there anything you can do to beef up the station at this point in terms of shielding? I don't know what the long-term plan is.
On the station, we still have some modifications. There's some debris wings that we're going to add to the Russian segment that will help shield some of those areas a little bit more. So those are still coming online. I think they get delivered in one of the later shuttle flights. So we've still got some things we're going to do, but no major upgrades are planned. And again, we'll just continue to watch the environment. It seems recently that debris picked up a lot of discussion, but it's really about the same as it's been. It's always been one of our leading risks, both in shuttle and in station. So it's something that we've been aware of for a long time. It just seems that we've been at least having a lot of things that have been in our orbit that have forced us to maneuver or talk about maneuver. And so I think we're going through a period of a lot of discussion that's a little more than normal, but it's not out of family with where we were before with debris.
Yeah, look, does he have any other questions before we give the last one to Todd? And not seeing takers?
Todd Halverson in Florida Today again. We talk a lot about the assembly of the International Space Station, and you talk about the potential for extending operations from 2015 to 2020. What can you tell us about the plan for the ultimate disposal of the International Space Station? That's about 900,000, close to 1 million pounds of hardware up there, and I'm just wondering how you plan to deorbit it safely.
We have a very detailed plan. In fact, we were required to file the plan before we started construction. And essentially we involve an automated transfer vehicle, the one that the Europeans are building, maybe 2 of those, I guess 1 of those, to actually deorbit the vehicle at the appropriate time and deorbit station. So we'll target a location in the ocean at the right time to go do that. But I think that's a little bit premature. As I talked earlier, I challenge you to think about utilizing space station. So if your idea of utilizing space station is dispose of it, I've challenged you in the wrong way. So turn that thought off and think about how you might use it.
All right, on that cheery note, we will end this news conference, and our next media event on NASA TV will be the post-landing news conference for members of Space Shuttle Discovery's STS-119 crew, and that will start between 7:30 and 7:45 p.m. Eastern. So thank you for joining us, and we'll see you back here in about 90 minutes.